think for a moment. How many times today have you already smiled when, in fact, you wanted to cry? How many times have you swallowed your words and agreed with something that completely contradicted what you felt inside? We are all actors in a show without intermission. We enter the great theater of life without an instruction manual. From the first cry, expectations already begin. We receive a role we didn't choose: the perfect child, the friend who never fails, the tireless professional. We wear the mask with such precision that, over time, we forget that it is not our true face. We learn the right lines, the appropriate gestures, the expected reactions. And when the applause comes, the promotion, the relationship, the likes on social media, why do we still feel that disturbing emptiness? Why, in the silence of our inner dressing room, when the lights go out and we are finally alone, does the soul still whisper that something is missing? Do you remember the first time you realized that you couldn't simply be yourself? Perhaps it was as a child, when your genuine enthusiasm was met with a "don't be so noisy," or when your sincere tears heard a "don't be so sensitive," or when your body, in its natural form, received looks that said "don't be so you." From the first steps on this stage called life, we absorb a silent but persistent message. To be loved, accepted, valued, one must please. One must mold oneself. One must be what others expect us to be. Vulnerability? We were taught that it's dangerous, a weakness to be hidden at all costs. Authenticity? Too risky in a world that rewards polished perfection and punishes honest imperfection. As Brené Brown warns us in her research on vulnerability, we cultivate perfection as a shield against shame and judgment. And so, brick by brick, we build our masks, desperately seeking the approval that we believe is the same as love. Each time we suppress an inappropriate feeling, each time we pretend to be stronger, happier, or more confident than we really are, another brick is added. Can you feel the weight of that construction now? The constant effort to keep that facade intact. The fear of rejection is a relentless director. It transforms us into exceptional actors. We smile radiantly in family photos while inside we fight against anxiety. We say, "I'm fine." We agree with opinions that hurt our deepest values just to avoid the discomfort of conflict. We post our carefully edited lives while hiding the imperfect parts that could make us truly connect. And with each successful performance, the mask solidifies a little more. We become so skilled in our roles that we even forget we are acting. The applause increases, the followers grow, the promotions come. But something strange happens. The more the mask is admired, the more genuine connection fades away. Have you ever found yourself in a room full of people and still feeling completely alone? Have you ever felt that unsettling feeling that no one really knows you, not even the people closest to you? That's the paradox of the mask. The more perfect it becomes, the more isolated we become. For the uncomfortable truth is that we cannot be truly loved for what we are not. And each applause directed at our performance, not at our authentic self, only increases the distance between who we appear to be and who we really are. There is a subtle, almost imperceptible moment when the mask we wore to protect ourselves transforms into the prison that confines us. It's like that story of the bird that, fearing the storm, builds a cage to shelter itself and, over time, forgets how to open the door, even when the sky is already clean and blue again. Have you ever felt that strange sensation of being lost within yourself? As if there were an authentic voice trying to communicate, but it has gone so long unheard that it has almost forgotten how to speak. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human psyche, identified this phenomenon as the root of our deepest loneliness. In his writings, he shows us an uncomfortable truth. The most devastating loneliness is not being physically alone or without company. It's not the absence of people around you or messages on your phone. The true existential loneliness is the absence of yourself in your own life. It's when the mask we've created becomes so convincing, so perfectly adapted to external expectations, that we begin to lose touch with who we really are underneath it. It's that moment when you look in the mirror and, for a disturbing second, don't recognize the person looking back at you. Not because your face has changed, but because your soul is so distant that your reflection has become just an image without substance. Can you feel that almost ghostly presence inside you? That authentic essence that is imprisoned behind the daily performance? Jung would call this your true self, that part of you that is spontaneous, creative, imperfect, and deeply alive. The part that has desires that perhaps contradict your social role. The part that has dreams that don't fit in the box of others' expectations. The part that feels inconvenient emotions like anger, sadness, or desire. If these reflections are touching something deep in you, subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey of rediscovery together. Let's explore this inner territory that few have the courage to visit. When this part is constantly ignored, when there is no space for it to express itself, we begin to experience what Jung described as the great loneliness. We can be at a dinner with friends, in a happy marriage, in a loving family, and still feel that no one really knows us, because we don't even allow ourselves to know who we are. And here we find the cruel paradox. The more successful our social mask is, the more applause it receives, the more difficult it becomes to recognize and free the imprisoned soul behind. In the midst of this internal desert, another powerful voice emerges. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unimaginable in Nazi concentration camps and emerged with a profound understanding of what really sustains the human spirit. Frankl realized, observing himself and his fellow sufferers, that what differentiated those who managed to keep their humanity intact, even in the most inhuman conditions, was not physical strength or luck. It was meaning. It was having something to live for that transcended immediate suffering. In his work, Man's Search for Meaning, he invites us to ask an uncomfortable question. Are we living a life with authentic purpose, or just fulfilling a socially acceptable role? Think about that. How many of your daily choices are driven by a deep sense of meaning, versus how many are just to keep up appearances? How many times do you choose paths not because they resonate with your deepest values, but because they are expected, safe, applauded? Frankl, in his wisdom forged in the most extreme suffering, realized that without authentic meaning, life becomes an empty stage. We can receive all the applause in the world, collect diplomas on walls, trophies on shelves, likes on social media, and still feel that persistent emptiness. Because our performances, however applauded they may be, do not fill the soul's yearning for true purpose. And the symptoms of this disconnection? They are everywhere in our modern society, so common that we almost normalize them. The constant anxiety, that feeling that something is wrong even when everything seems right. The chronic exhaustion that no rest seems to cure. The imposter syndrome, that voice that whispers that you are a fraud, and that soon everyone will find out. The incessant search for external validation, the addiction to checking notifications, the need for constant confirmation that you are still approved, still accepted, the sensation of accelerated time, as if life were passing without you really living it. The existential boredom amid an abundance of entertainment. Do you recognize any of these signs in your own life? If so, you are not alone. You are just experiencing the natural result of a life where the mask speaks louder than the soul. But here's the truth that Jung and Frankl shared in their works. This pain, this discomfort, is not an enemy to be eliminated with more performance, more achievements, or more external validation. This pain is a messenger. It is the call of your soul asking to be heard again. And perhaps, just perhaps, this discomfort is the first step on a journey back home, back to yourself. In the hero's journey that Campbell mapped, there is a crucial moment after the call, the meeting with the threshold guardian. It is that force that tries to prevent the hero from embarking on their adventure. In stories, it can be a dragon, a soldier, a seemingly impossible challenge. In our internal journey, this guardian takes subtle and powerful forms. What if people don't like my authentic self? What if I lose my job, my friends, my status? What if I discover there's nothing special behind the mask? What if it's too late to change? Do you recognize any of these voices? These are the guardians trying to keep you in the safety of the known, even if that known is a golden prison. What Campbell discovered is that all heroes feel fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. It's normal to feel resistance. It's normal to question yourself. What differentiates those who embark on the journey is not the absence of doubt, but the refusal to allow doubt to have the final word. Another constant in mythical journeys is the presence of the mentor, the wise figure who offers guidance, tools, and encouragement. Think of Gandalf, Dumbledore, Obi-Wan Kenobi. In your journey of self-discovery, who are your mentors? They can be real people in your life. That friend who always saw beyond your mask, that therapist who helps you navigate the deep waters of the unconscious, that teacher who believed in you when you doubted yourself. They can be mentors you never met personally, authors whose words resonated with your truth, artists whose authentic expression inspired you, historical figures whose courage in being authentic changed the world. And there are also the allies, those journey companions who, like you, are seeking their way back home. In a world that values conformity, finding your tribe, people with whom you can be genuinely yourself, is an invaluable treasure. How to find these allies? Often, it's by practicing small acts of authenticity. When you begin to express yourself with more truth, something magical happens. You become a beacon for other souls seeking the same. Your courage inspires courage. Your authenticity invites authenticity. In Campbell's structure, there is a moment called the approach to the inmost cave. It's when the hero must face their greatest fears and shadows before obtaining the treasure or elixir. In our internal journey, these caves can be painful memories we have avoided, emotions we have repressed, truths about ourselves we have denied. They are those parts of us that Jung would call shadow, aspects of our personality that, for not fitting into the ideal image we have constructed, were banished to the unconscious. But here's the paradox that Jung discovered. The more we try to repress these parts, the more power they exert over us in unconscious ways. Denied anger doesn't disappear. It transforms into chronic bitterness, constant headaches, inexplicable outbursts. Unprocessed sadness doesn't dissolve. It manifests as existential emptiness, as dependence on distractions, as persistent boredom. The path to wholeness is not to eliminate the shadows, but to illuminate them with the light of consciousness and compassion. It's to realize that that anger contains vital energy to establish healthy boundaries, that sadness carries a deep capacity for connection, that insecurity hides a sensitivity that is, in fact, one of your greatest gifts. One of the biggest misconceptions about authenticity is imagining that it is a destination to be reached, a permanent state to be conquered. Finally, I will be authentic and all my problems will disappear. The truth that the great spiritual and psychological masters discovered is that authenticity is not a destination. It is a continuous dance. It is a daily practice of self-observation, self-acceptance, and self-expression. There will be days when you will feel perfectly aligned, as if all parts of you were in harmony. There will be days when the old masks will reappear, when the fear of rejection will speak louder than the desire for truth. What matters is not the perfection in this journey, but the commitment to the process. It's gently getting up each time you fall into the old trap of performance. It's remembering, even in moments of disconnection, that the path back home will always be available. Let's explore more deeply the revolutionary power of silence in our digital age. We live in a world that has transformed noise into virtue. We have never been so externally connected and, paradoxically, so internally disconnected. The endless feed of social networks, constant notifications, the bombardment of information. All this creates a reality where attention has become the most precious and scarcest asset. The creative silence I propose is not just a pause from external noise. It is a revolution against a system that thrives by keeping us distracted from ourselves. It is a political act as much as a spiritual one. When you turn off your phone for an hour, when you close browser tabs, when you disable notifications, and allow yourself to simply be present with yourself, you are reclaiming something that was subtly stolen: your ability to listen to your own inner voice. Thomas Merton, Trappist monk and writer, said, "The greatest luxury of our days is not gold or jewels, but space, silence, and the opportunity to not be hit by 1,000 messages at once." And in silence, something surprising can happen. You may discover that that inner voice is not just a fragile whisper. It is a source of deep wisdom, unexplored creativity, sharp intuition that can guide you much better than any algorithm or external opinion. When we talk about observing our masks with compassion, we are practicing what contemplative traditions call disidentification. The ability to perceive that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your social roles. You are not the perfectionist. You are the consciousness that perceives perfectionism acting in you. You are not the imposter. You are the presence that notices the imposter fear arising. You are not your achievements nor your failures. You are the space that witnesses all this dance. This practice of compassionate self-observation is not just a psychological exercise. It is a profound expansion of identity. It is moving from the limiting identification with a specific mask to the liberating expansion of recognizing yourself as the consciousness that can use and abandon masks as needed. It's like that moment when the actor realizes, "I am not Hamlet. I can play Hamlet. I can give myself completely to the role. But when the curtain falls, I can choose another role or simply be myself." The small acts of authentic courage we suggest are not just for your individual benefit. They have a transformative power that extends far beyond you. Brené Brown, in her research on vulnerability, discovered something fascinating. Courage is contagious. When one person in a group has the courage to be vulnerable and authentic, they create a field of permission for others to do the same. Think of a moment when someone in a meeting had the courage to say, "I don't know," or "I'm struggling with this," or "I respectfully disagree." Remember how that changed the energy of the room? How it created space for a more honest and productive conversation? Each time you choose authenticity over performance, you are not just liberating yourself, you are sending a silent invitation for others to do the same. You are creating a world where it is safer to be human, perfect, real. And perhaps this is the true elixir that Campbell mentioned. The gift that the hero brings back from their journey to benefit the entire community. It is not just your own freedom from the tyranny of the mask, but the tacit permission that your authenticity grants to others. If I can be real, you can too. The ultimate goal of this journey is not to completely abandon the masks. That would be impossible and even undesirable in a social world. The goal is integration, the ability to use masks consciously, when appropriate, without losing touch with the authentic being behind them. It is the difference between the actor who gets stuck in the role and can no longer distinguish between the character and themselves, and the master actor who can enter and exit the role with grace and awareness, always knowing who they are. Jung would call this individuation, the process of integrating the diverse aspects of the self into a coherent. It is not eliminating parts of oneself, but recognizing and honoring all, allowing each to have a voice and appropriate expression. It is the moment when you realize that you don't need to choose between your strength and your vulnerability, between your rationality and your intuition, between your professional side and your playful side. All are legitimate aspects of your being. All have value, all deserve a place at the table of your life, and perhaps this is the true freedom we seek. Not the freedom to never wear a mask again, but the freedom to consciously choose which masks serve the present moment and your deeper purpose, always anchored in the knowledge of who you are behind all of them. There is a moment of profound transformation that many describe as an awakening. It is not loud like an alarm, but gentle like the dawn. That instant when you finally allow the mask to slide, not in a dramatic gesture of rebellion, but in an act of gentle surrender. And what you discover in that moment contradicts everything that fear has always told you. Because when the mask finally falls, what remains is not the fragility it is not the inadequacy you dreaded. It is not the emptiness that haunted you in the darkest hours. What emerges is a strength you barely recognized. Not the rigid strength of perfect performance, but the flexible strength of imperfect authenticity. The strength to say, "This is me," and allow that to be enough. The strength to be present with your truth, even when it doesn't fit others' expectations. It is not emptiness you find, but a surprising fullness. That space that previously seemed to be filled only with external validation reveals itself, in fact, as a well of internal resources. Creativity that didn't need permission to express itself. Wisdom that was always there waiting to be consulted. Intuition that whispered guidance that you were too busy performing to hear. It is freedom. The true freedom that transcends the superficial concept of doing whatever you want. It is the deeper freedom of being imperfectly, humanly, authentically you. It is the freedom to make mistakes and learn, to feel completely, to change your mind, to not know all the answers, to be in process. It's like that palpable physical sensation when you arrive home after a long day wearing tight clothes and can finally change them for something comfortable. That sigh of relief, that relaxation of the shoulders, that feeling of, "I can finally breathe." Cora Coralina, our Brazilian poet, captured this beautifully. What matters in life is not the starting point, but the journey. Walking and sowing, in the end, you will have what to harvest. And what you harvest is not just a transformed relationship with yourself, but a new quality of connection with others. Perhaps one of the most surprising discoveries of this journey is how authenticity radically transforms your relationships. There is a profound qualitative difference between connections that feed the mask and connections that nourish the soul. The former are those based on mutual performance. You present your best version, the other person presents theirs, and both politely applaud each other's performances, while secretly wondering why they still feel alone even when together. They are relationships that depend on maintaining the image, that are based on superficial liking, not deep knowing. The connections that nourish the soul, on the other hand, are those where there is space for truth, yours and the others. Where you can say, "I am struggling," and not receive immediate advice to fix your feeling, but compassionate presence. Where you can reveal your contradictions, your fears, your imperfections, and find not judgment, but recognition. Me too. It is true that, as you begin to practice authenticity, some connections based only on performance may drift away, and that hurts. There may be people in your life who related only to your mask, not to your essence. When the mask begins to fall, they may feel confused, uncomfortable, even betrayed. "You've changed," they will say, as if that were an accusation and not a compliment. This loss is real and deserves to be honored. It is part of the price of authenticity. But what perhaps you have not yet realized is what is waiting on the other side of that loss. Connections of a quality that you may never have experienced before. Connections where you don't need to constantly strive to be accepted, because you are received exactly as you are. Connections where vulnerability is seen not as weakness, but as the deepest act of courage and trust. These are the connections that truly nourish your soul, that don't drain your energy, that don't demand constant performance, but offer rest and acceptance. Martin Buber, philosopher of dialogue, would call these I-thou, rather than I-it relationships. It is the difference between treating the other as an object to be manipulated, impressed, or used, and encountering them as a living and complete presence, as mysterious and sacred as yourself. And perhaps the most beautiful thing in all this, it is precisely your revealed imperfection, your exposed humanity, that creates the space for the other to do the same. It is your courage in letting the mask fall that allows the other the relief of being able finally to breathe in your presence. At the end of this journey, you don't become someone new. You rediscover who you always were. under the layers of expectations, conditioning, and performances. It's like that Zen story of the sculptor who, when asked how he managed to create such beautiful sculptures from blocks of stone, replied, "I simply remove everything that is not the elephant." Authenticity is not something to be built or achieved. It is what remains when we remove everything that we are not. The journey inward is the most courageous of all. Not because it involves external dragons to be defeated or distant kingdoms to be conquered, but because it requires the rarest and most valuable courage. The courage to find and accept yourself exactly as you are, with all your contradictions, complexities, and imperfections. It is not about finding a new role to play in the great theater of life. It is about honoring the soul that has always been there, waiting patiently to be seen, heard, and loved by you before anyone else. And that is the true revolution. One that happens in silence, in the sacred space of your interior, but whose waves can transform everything around you. Because a human being who has found their own authenticity is a force of nature, not for the perfection they display, but for the permission they grant to others to also be real. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want to leave you with an invitation. Imagine your life not as a performance to be judged, but as an expression to be lived. Not as a test to be passed, but as an adventure to be explored. Not as a product to be sold, but as a gift to be offered. Which mask are you ready to question today? What small act of authenticity could you practice today? Which part of you is waiting to be recognized and honored? The beauty of authenticity is that it doesn't require grand dramatic gestures, just small, consistent acts of truth that day by day lead us back home to ourselves. And remember, you are not alone in this theater. Around you, in silence, countless others are on their own journeys of return to authenticity. Everyone is seeking the courage to be who they really are. If this reflection on our masks and the journey back to authenticity touched something in you, subscribe to the channel so we can continue together this exploration of the human soul. Leave in the comments which mask you are ready to question today, or an experience of when you allowed yourself to be authentic and how it transformed your life. Your like is more than a click. It's a sign that this message resonated with your inner truth. And if you know someone who is stuck in their own masks, share this video. Sometimes, we just need a gentle reminder that it is safe to be who we really are. We'll meet in the next video, where we'll continue unraveling the mysteries of the internal theater we all inhabit. Until then, remember, your authenticity is not just a gift to yourself, but a light that allows others to shine too.